Okay, we'll wrap up this one this week. God rest you merry gentlemen. Let's just review what we have. So we started in the key of D minor with the drop D. We talked about kind of playing it freely. And then we modulate. And we also talked about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, line 5, the third measure, possibly adding that extra bass line. That nice ascending line, so we kind of have a melody lines going in different directions. The actual melody there is going, and then we have the bass line going. So we have that contrary motion, one going up and one going down. It's always considered a good thing, an interesting thing to do. Then we modulate. Okay, so first off, at this point, after we modulate, after we play that E chord and we have that kind of big double line there, we can ignore the rest of this page from this day forward. So what we did last week is after we modulated, we went to the new page and we played the song in A minor using this open string kind of where we're getting the notes are overlapping over each other, creating some interesting harmonies. Like there we have that 5 open 7. And then another open, so we have all of those strings ringing, which creates a nice effect. Then we get to the E7. I think we talked about the fact that the thumb note on the 6th fret is kind of optional. And then it repeats. To the D minor. There we have that, once again, that overlapping. Up to the A minor 7. There we have that figure again. To the G chord. Once again, even on that G chord, we can strive to keep everything ringing. To the C chord. There, once again, we want to hold the C chord. To the E7. A minor, we come back up. So going back to that E7, and we talked about utilizing that open B string to get back up here. Landing on that. There's that figure again, it recurs many times. Back to the G chord. To the C chord again. Hold it. Have to let go here. To the E7. again, that open string. Okay, so that was option 1, coming off that D minor after we modulate. So today we're going to talk about option 2. And part of the reason for giving the 2 options is to stress, really, to make several points. One of the points you want to make is that there are so many ways to play any given song. A lot of times when somebody learns a song, they kind of get locked into that one way of playing it, and the idea of playing it any other way, they kind of rebel against the idea. So I like to dispel that notion, which is why we do variations very often when we play these different arrangements. So once again, coming off the first page in D minor, we get to where we hit that E chord. And now from that double line, we can go to this new page, which is going to be the same melody, but a little bit different as far as the harmonization. So we're going to start with the second, so we can put our hand on that A minor chord there for starters. So we have the 2, then the open 2-2. And then we go to the E chord. Okay? Now that would line up with, from the way we did it the previous week. So we have this from the previous week. This week. So you notice we have a chord change there. From last week, we don't have a chord change. We're still letting that A minor chord ring there. Whereas this week, we're going to use a chord change. Going to go to the E7. Now what happens in the next measure is we go back to an A minor, but we go to an inverted A minor. So here we have the A minor chord, which is the 2-2-1, but we're putting the pinky on the 3rd fret of the A string. So what we have there is we have a first inversion A minor, or an A minor with a C note in the bass. And the reason we're doing that is we're creating a bass line which will become more apparent once we finish the second measure. So we have this chord, then the next chord, open 1 open, 2-2, and then open open. So if you go back to the beginning of this new the second way that we're doing it, and we just look at the lowest notes, we have an open A, then we have a 2nd fret of the A. Going to the next measure, we have the 3rd fret of the A, then we have an open D, and then we have the 2nd fret of D. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So we kind of have a bass line going as well as a reharmonization using additional chords. So you can listen for that bass line. Okay? I don't know if you could pick it out or not, but it's there. Open. Okay? So the other thing I want to stress is when you're playing those first couple of measures. Okay, so we have the A minor, shaped like that. We're just dropping down to the E. And then we're going back to the A minor, but that pinky comes up here. first finger comes up, and then these two fingers drop back down. So once again, economy of motion in the left hand. You want to look for that. Then open, open. Okay, so that would correlate once again from last week. So you can really start to hear the difference, and they not only harmonically, but there's a completely different feel. From last week, this is more, I don't know if the word would be mysterious, airy, you know, ethereal. This week, going to the third measure. Then we're going to go to an inverted F chord, open, 3, 2, 1, pinky down for 3, and then we'll leave the pinky where it is, and then the first finger and the second finger will come up to grab the E7 chord. I'll play that from the beginning. Important to leave that pinky down going from line 1 to line 2. Once again, we'll compare from last week. This week. Okay, going on, it's pretty much the same as what we just played. And this is where it'll change at the very end of the second line. You can even see we have the, if you compare the last two figures of the second line to the last two figures of the first line, you can see we have a different chord there on the third figure in that measure. Then we have the third fret. So we're going to a different harmonization there. So what happens when you play that, the last two chords in line 2, you have this first chord, you have this transient dissonance, okay, because you have this B note, the second fret, against this C note, but it quickly resolves when you put the pinky down. And once again, the purpose of that is to get that bass line going from the, if we just look at that last measure of the second line, the first chord has the A note in the bass, and then we go to the second fret, and then when we get to the third line, we're up to the third fret of that A string. So that's the bass line we're looking for. Okay? So very often dissonance has to do with context. You know, if we just played that chord, it sounds like a wrong chord. But in the context, as the song flows, we have that momentary tension. And tension in music is good. We probably talked about that before. It creates interest. So I'll play from the beginning to the very first chord in line 3. compared with. Okay, that's from last week. One more time, then we'll move on. I'll play what we have from this week. Oops, sorry. Now it's okay for you to say, well, I like the one from last week better, or I like this better. That's purely subjective. That isn't the point of, the point isn't being, I want you to pick which one you like best. The point is just understanding that there's more than one way to skin a cat when it comes to, especially Christmas carols. Most Christmas carols have probably been done in literally hundreds of ways. The same Christmas carol probably done hundreds of ways, different harmonizations, different bass lines, different counterpoints. So that's kind of the point that we're trying to make. This is actually going to be probably harder to play, harder to make smooth, because we have more chord changes. 2, 3. Let me point out before we go on, when you're playing the song from the beginning, getting to that first chord, that inverted A minor with C in the bass, you're coming off of this E7. Really, you're going to really need to focus on bringing that pinky up, because you have your hand going in two different directions. You have these 3 fingers going down and that pinky going up. So it would be good to even practice this chord going to that chord and just get used to that back and forth. That'll be one of the more difficult chord changes. Not only because you're going in 2 different directions, but because you're also targeting a note with the pinky, and the pinky tends to be the least cooperative of our fingers. You're probably aware of that. So you really got to be sort of deliberate until it becomes a little more second nature. So we're at line 3. We end on that C chord. Okay, then we're going to continue on to the D minor. I prefer to play the D minor with my pinky. You can play it with the ring finger. Okay? Just natural for me to play with the pinky. 2, open, 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 open. First fret. E minor. Slide the pinky up. A minor 7. Okay. So once again, that actually flows. If you pay attention to the left hand, always try to, when you're learning these things, try to, really make sense out of the left hand movement. So we're going from that D minor to that inverted G chord. So we're just simply bringing that middle finger straight up. Then we're bringing that middle finger back down and we're dropping the pinky. Pinky slides up. Everything slides back to the A minor 7. Okay? To an E7 again. A minor. Then we have a D, first fret. We'll slide that first finger up. Okay, I'm going to take it from line 3 again. We end on the C chord. 2, 3. Now what that would compare with from last week, this week, they both end up on the same G chord. In the last measure of line 3, we have the A minor. It feels more natural to me when I get to that D chord to drop my middle finger down and then use my first finger and then slide the first finger up. That's just the way that feels comfortable to me. Doesn't have to be that way. Okay, playing this from the beginning. 2, 3. Okay? Now from there, it's going to be the same. So what you played after that G chord last week, we're going to do the same thing. We go to the C chord, E7, sorry. Okay, hope that's clear. I will put a marking on there to indicate where you go from the new page. I'll just put like a coda, circle with the cross through it, and that's where you'll reconnect with the page from last week. So, hope you enjoy that. Listen for the differences, even compare some, maybe put the page, once you get good at the one page, at the new one, you can even compare. You can play from last week like I did. Compare that. Obviously, a lot more going on. 2 completely different takes on the song. So, have fun with that, and if you have any questions, you know where to find me.